Hello. Thank you so much for joining me at Fulfilling Career Happy Life. I'm glad that you're here, whether you're watching live or later. If you are here, then that means that the topic was intriguing to you. You might be feeling a career itch, some change a coming. So I'm eager to dive in with you on that topic. Um, I'm Randi Roberts, career life and executive coach, and really happy to bring this topic to you today. As you know, I choose these topics based on the things that are coming up with my clients and the things that I'm just sort of seeing out in the world as something that we need to be talking about. And the topic of preparing yourself for a career transition, when you feel a career change coming, is making itself known to me a lot. So I thought it was one that was really worthwhile for us to talk about today. So hang on to the end if you can, because at the end I have a couple of questions that I've gotten from folks as I've socialized the topic a little bit that I think may be helpful for you and really practical. Okay, so let's dig in. Let's talk about what happens when you feel a career change coming. How do you prepare yourself for that career transition? So think for a moment, like, have you ever had that realization, that sense that something has shifted and something doesn't feel as right anymore about the work you're doing or the career that you're in, but you might not be so sure what it is? I have had that experience for sure, and in fact, it's what led me to leave the corporate world and start my own business, and I learned a lot about that process and have guided a lot of clients through it. The important thing is to pay attention to it because that data is really important. Don't make yourself feel wrong or less than or whatever for not feeling as excited. If that's happening, pay attention to it. It might be a momentary thing, or it might be something that you need to act on. So, today, what we're going to talk about is not really the job search, but the steps before that. Talk about some of the internal work that's worth doing to make sure that you're moving towards something in a powerful way rather than just running away from something. Sometimes we have to run away, but if we don't know what that thing is, we might be running to it again. So that's what we're going to focus on today. And I'm going to cover 4 aspects of, the readiness piece, the internal work at a high level. But what I would say is pay attention to what resonates for you and what makes sense to you and sort of what speaks to you, because those may be the areas that are worthwhile you diving deeper on. And we could certainly do that in the future. Okay, so the first element is, how do you know it's time? This thing is making itself known to you. How do you know it's time to pay attention to it and really think about a career transition? So some of the signals, the way this may be showing up with for you is, could it be chronic disengagement? I'll call it. Like you feel like you're going through the motions in a way that you haven't before. That may be a sign. Has your growth flatlined? Do you no longer feel as challenged as you did? Do you feel like you're not learning as much? For many people, that's really important, and that could be a cause of dissatisfaction. Um, are you feeling some kind of values misalignment? If the culture that you're in no longer reflects who you are, either because you've changed or it's changed, that is something you owe it to yourself to pay attention to. And one other signal that may be worth paying attention to, that Sunday dread feeling, or the Sunday scaries, some people call them. For me, it was just the inability to sleep on Sunday nights and sort of feeling ill at ease on Sunday evenings. If that's become sort of a permanent state, that may be something worth paying attention to. So, one of the things to think about is, are you just burned out, or do you really need to think about a move? And it's different, it's important to separate them out. Burnout is about energy and overwhelm. And sometimes the best way to test if that's the problem is to take some time off. This may sound crazy to you. Take off 2 weeks and unplug. Okay, if your brain just exploded, that may be a sign that that's a really good idea for you. But even if you could do just a few days, the weekend may not be enough. You need to extend it a little bit, but unplug, change the subject, change your surroundings, and see what's the impact on you. Like, do you come back at least a little bit restored? That may be a symptom that it really is burnout. But if the overwhelm meets you as soon as you turn your email back on, it may be something more than that. And it can be a really hard thing to do, but you really want to try not to make any major decisions from a place of overwhelm. We're not in touch with our best selves. We're not as resilient as we often are. We're not able to clearly make decisions in the same way if you're feeling the pressure of the overwhelm. But the great news is doing some of this inner work can really shift your mindset so that it all feels more tolerable and easy to, I don't want to say overcome, because sometimes we need to get through it, easier to manage. Okay, when you're thinking about, "Oh, should I be taking this on? What does this look like?" I would say start with a point of practicality. Weigh your personal needs, weigh your financial situation so that that can be a piece of information through which you make a decision. So it's surprising to me how often I'm having these big career discussions with clients, and I might ask a question like, "Well, how long do you want to work? At what age do you want to be done?" Or, um, "What's your financial runway? If you're thinking of leaving by your own choice, how long can you be out of work and be comfortable with that situation?" Okay, those are two pretty tangible questions. And if someone doesn't have an answer to those questions, it's a sign that you might want to dig into a little bit. And I tell you why. It's up to you how important the answers to that are. For me, and I know it goes back to my upbringing, security's always been very important. So knowing what the answers are to those questions is important. One of the reasons that it may be important to you is having those answers can really reduce a lot of anxiety. You'll be surprised that having, rather than a vague sense of, I don't know, I couldn't retire until I'm X age, versus I can retire at this point. That's my thinking. I know very clearly at what point I need to work until. And my thinking is, and I hope I won't be ready to be done, but I know when I'll have that option. Having that information reduces a lot of anxiety. And for most people, when you dig into those answers, the situation's actually better than you fear it may be. So, but whatever it is, you will know what you're dealing with, and you'll be coming from a point of data. So that's one thing that I would think about. And the whole point of that is so that you can be strategic and practical at the same time, because financial urgency can really narrow your vision exactly when you need it to be wide. So having that information can really help that. I mean, the goal here is for you to be able to decide and act with both urgency where it's appropriate and intention. I mean, those two things can absolutely coexist, and probably puts you in your most powerful position to advocate for yourself and move forward in the way you want to. Okay, so let's do a quick gut check. Once you've thought about those elements that may be present for you, here's your gut check. If nothing changes in the next 12 months, how are you going to feel? And this is absolutely a time, digging into that is absolutely an act of self-awareness. It is not defeat. So just accept the answer for what it is. But a lot of times your reaction to something is very, very telling. So how did you react when I asked that question? If nothing changes in 12 months, how are you going to feel about it? If your answer is great, then good. Then you may be able to coast just enough and build some other things into your life. But if your reaction is, I'll be dissatisfied, I'll be angry, I'll be unhappy, whatever, okay, then that's a signal that some changes may be in your best interest. So it's often really helpful to get some support when that voice starts talking to you. But you have to be a little bit careful from whom you get the support. If you're fortunate, you have a lot of people in your life that you trust and that would give you the best advice that they can. But some of the people in your world have a bit of an agenda or a locked perspective that may or may not be as helpful for you. So you want to think about it. And you may want to think about it as, you know, what if you feel like it's time to make a move, but everyone around you thinks you should stay put? How are you going to trust yourself? So a lot of times the people around you see your situation from the outside, whereas nobody knows what it's like to look at it through your eyes. So their input may be really helpful, but you need to trust your own instincts. And sometimes people are coming from a position of, you know, they may be looking at it very objectively and pointing out some things that are really helpful for you to weigh into your thinking, or it could be their own discomfort with change. So know what yours is and then sort of weigh that into the advice that you're getting. The input of other people absolutely deserves consideration. It's possible that they see some things about you. Some of the people in our lives, like, can call it out and know us better than sometimes we know ourselves. And that's great. Their input deserves consideration, but it does not deserve the final vote. You get the final vote. It's your career. So you want to have that trusted counsel around you, but you also want to stay in touch with what you know to be true. Okay, so there's a lot of thoughts around that first element of this. Let's move to the second. Are you fixing the right problem? It's very important to consider whether you're fixing the right problem, because otherwise you may be taking the problem with you when you make a change, or running to a similar situation. So ask yourself the question, and in order to answer it, obviously you need to know what that is. I've seen some people quit a job when really the problem is dynamics with their boss, or dynamics on their team, or the title that they're not happy with, or something like that. So you want to get to the bottom of what that is. And it really highlights the importance of that. It really highlights the importance of that honest exploration before you take action. And sometimes this requires some courage, but you can do it. You kind of want to think about a simple framework of what's working, what's not, what's missing. And break down, like, what energizes you in your current role. Pay attention to that, because that's what you want to be surrounded with. Also, what drains you. I know that for me, when I realized it was time for me to think about this and go through this journey myself when I was in the corporate world, when the work that used to excite me began to exhaust me. So pay attention to that. You can ask your question, what do you wish existed that doesn't? That might be another way to tease it out for you. Because, a key question that you can ask yourself is, are you running away from something that's specific and fixable, or is this a deeper misalignment that cannot be fixed? Because for many people, you want to consider that carefully. Once you know what the issue is, you may be able to fix it for yourself right where you are. And there may be a lot of reasons to do that. Making a big change. Sometimes these golden handcuffs that companies put on us really are powerful. The financial incentives to stay, or the equity that you've built up either with customers or internally. Those are things not to give up lightly, but they're not the only things. So it's really important for you to get some really valuable thought partnership at this stage, because we often need the perspective of others. I work with a coach. I have mentors and trusted advisors and sound, thought partners with me all the time, because we need an outside perspective. If you're not sure where to start, one place might be take advantage of the career satisfaction assessment that I offer. It's free. It's available on my website under the resource section. And in fact, I can put the link here on the recording if you're watching this after. What that does is it takes you through, it's a great starting place. It takes you through 8 different pillars of satisfaction in your career and how you may be feeling on each of them. So it's self-reported. It's you will be as objective as you can be with it, but it's a great starting place. Like many things, is not going to give you the answer, but it's a great place to go to start pulling out what may be working that you want to preserve and move towards, and what may not be working that needs to be fixed. So, an important consideration is that if the problem is fixable, but you've mentally checked out because time has passed, you've been dissatisfied, you haven't paid attention to the question, should you try and fix it before leaving? Well, only you will know the answer to that. So you may want to ask yourself, what would it cost you to try? And what would you gain if it worked? If fixing it means advocating for yourself and the upside is a role that you love, it is worth the discomfort. But if you've already tried and the culture's fundamentally broken or staying is eroding your confidence, you have your answer. Checking out mentally is data. But if you don't, so you don't want to let it make the decision for you, but you don't want to ignore it. Think about it. Think about what's behind that so that you can really choose deliberately, not just drift out the door somewhere. Keep in mind that you are where you are. The things that I said about mentally checking out could strike you as being a bit judgmental or that you're doing something wrong if you're really feeling in that moment. That's not true. You are where you are. But even if that has happened sort of unconsciously for you, you can get ahead of it in the future by thinking about this. All right. So the next element of this is sort of taking stock. What is your own personal value proposition, as I refer to it? The message here is that you have a lot more to offer than your last job or your current job. Even the sum of your experience, you are much more than that. And so thinking about this and digging into this a little bit can really help both with your mindset, but also with your narrative. One of the things that you will need to do if you make a move is tell your own story. And so taking stock of what you got really is the foundation for that. So, and most executives undersell themselves in these transitions for a lot of reasons. Sometimes we just don't recognize what we have, or we're uncomfortable advocating for them for ourselves. But a great place to start is to take inventory of your assets, I'll call it. So, in terms of your skills, what are you good at? Where have you added value? Those things are, if you can look at it somewhat objectively, you should be able to identify at least some of those things pretty easily. What's your experience? All of it. Your work experience, your education experience. It might be a leadership role you've had in a nonprofit, something that's not at all work related. So go through and inventory all of your experience, the jobs, the industries, the challenges that you've navigated. You'd be surprised at what you come up with that's relevant that you would not have thought of if you hadn't really sat down and focused on it. Here's one that I love. Think about your interests. What genuinely lights you up? What do you absolutely love to do? What is the work that you gravitate towards? Because that should count. You want to be around more of that. So it's important to know what that is. Think also about what are your values? Like, what has to be present for you to do your best work, to contribute to the greatest extent, and for you to feel committed and connected over the long term. Your values really weigh into that. There has to be alignment with your company and what you're surrounded with. What are your superpowers? Like, what are the things that you do better than almost anybody that other people come to you for that expertise? These are cool things to be in touch with and to be able to talk about during a search. And then think about, what are your goals? Like, and it's more than what's the next job that you want. Think about it through a lens of, what does the next chapter actually need to bring for you? Those are all good things to think about in terms of taking that inventory. Here's a question you could ask yourself that actually may be helpful. You can dream a little bit. What would you do if you knew you couldn't fail and someone would actually pay you for it? Like, restraints off here. Try and ask yourself that question, because that can really help set up your broad direction. It may or may not change the plan that you're on, but a career plan is long term and it is worth pressure testing at different points or time points or milestones or whatever, to make sure that what you want is still the direction that you're headed. So that gives you some things to think about in terms of your personal value proposition. I promise you, you will come up with things that surprise you. Okay, so the fourth element that we're going to go into at a high level is getting your mindset into search shape. And mindset is one of the things that maybe I spend the most time talking to clients about, because it really is the lens through which you see the world. If you are looking at the world through rose-colored glasses, literally, you will see everything with a pink tinge. If you're looking at the world through scratched up glasses, the world will look a little bit distorted to you. Likewise, if you're looking at the world through glasses that don't feel entirely confident, aren't sure what you want, aren't sure if you can do the next thing, that's how you're going to come across. And you can adjust that. So I really think that mindset is the most underestimated part of a career search. We tend to talk about things like, is my resume ready? Is my LinkedIn profile in shape? Do I have my network warmed up? Those kinds of things. Those things are all important. But before that, even, or in parallel, if you're in a hurry, you really do want to think about your mindset, because it's the foundation of everything that you're doing. So watch out for a couple of common traps. One is, I'll call it identity attachment, which is I am my title thinking. I think I was guilty of that at points in my career. You aren't your title. What's interesting now is I'm seeing a lot of companies that I work with going away from very specific level titles, and they're going more like, it's not director, VP, EVP. It's almost more head of the thing. Now, they may have their reasons for doing it, but the result of it is a title may be less descriptive than it used to be. Maybe that's a good thing. Another common trap to watch out for is this sort of urgency panic. And sometimes we have that, and sometimes it's real, but be aware that that may lead to fear-based decision making. And there may be ways to temper that so that you can clear up that distraction and get to a place of making, clearer, more purposeful decisions. Another mindset trap, if you will, to watch out for is like the comparison spiral. And that's basically you comparing yourself to other people. And that usually does not take you to a good place. It usually takes you to a place of feeling lesser. And a way to think about this is you're measuring your insides by other people's outsides. And what I mean by that is you're measuring yourself against what you see of others. You have no idea how it feels to them. Now think about yourself. Sometimes the job you always wanted doesn't feel the way you thought it would feel, or there's some level of dissatisfaction or lack of fulfillment in other ways. You don't know how other people are measuring themselves. So be careful when you're measuring yourself against the external view of someone else. That can lead you in a direction that isn't necessarily in your best interest. The great news about this is you can choose your mindset by being purposeful about it. You can shift into what's the mindset that's going to best serve me. So when you're in that search ready mindset, I'll call it, what it looks like often is curiosity over anxiety or judgment. Patience paired with momentum, meaning, there are moments when you will feel impatient, But what you want to do is kind of temper that. If you're in a more patient frame of mind, then you can still be moving forward in a way that you're making more careful decisions that better fit you, with a little bit of awareness that it may take you a little bit of time. Um, a search ready mindset also really feels very confident because you're grounded in what you offer. You've done that personal value assessment, and you know what it is that you offer, and that breeds a lot of confidence. Sometimes some practices that can help people get in touch with that mindset that they've decided will best serve them. For some people, it's journaling, either pen to paper or on the computer, or doing it out loud to some sort of recording device. That can help. Getting coaching, getting advice from others can often help. Sometimes it's connecting with community, connecting with people in your industry outside of your company. For some people, it's paying attention to their physical health and self-care. You will know what's right for you, but put those things into place so that you can do the mindset reframe that you want to do. You are not starting over in this search. You're starting from all the experience you have and everything you bring to it. So these steps can um, help you live that alignment, if you will. If you are purposeful about your mindset, it can be a touchstone for you. So you may do that work to decide what mindset best serves you going into this search. And I can promise you there will be moments when it slips. There will be moments when your confidence lags a little bit, when you lose sight of what you've got to work with because the fear creeps in a little bit. And if you're clear about what mindset you want to hold, that can really be a touchstone for you to come back to and get back to where you want to be. Okay, so as I promised, I've shared a lot of things at a very high level for you. Think about which of those 4 areas need attention from you right now. What resonated for you? What are the things that you want to dig back into? And we can do that together through this kind of a forum, or I'm happy to talk to you one-on-one. You know where to find me. But what I want you to walk away with is the knowledge that the work you do before the search is what makes the search work. It is absolutely worth the investment of time. So I promised you that I have a few questions that I've been asked that I want to address for you, if you can stick with me a few more minutes. But come back next month, because we're going to get into what may be the next step for you, which is networking, and how do you make that critically important asset work for you. Okay, so the questions. Two themes around the questions that I've gotten on this topic. One is, go back to the personal value proposition stage when you're doing that inventory. Sometimes when people are doing that, they feel like they're bragging. They feel like that goes against what we were taught to sort of be humble and let our light shine by itself, kind of thing. I don't necessarily agree with that anyway. But if doing that inventory of your strengths makes you uncomfortable, there are definitely some ways that you can get past it. I would say as soon as you become aware of it, you want to reframe it. This isn't bragging. It's taking an inventory. If you were taking an inventory of what's in your pantry, well, I have more pancake mix and canned garbanzo beans than someone else. Is that bragging? No, it's inventory. You can almost think about it in the same way. Another way you can do it is get outside of yourself and ask someone who really knows your work. What do you think I'm great at? Sometimes we need someone else to hand us the mirror, and it's okay to ask. It might make you feel better to set some context. You're not on this search for how wonderful you are. You're in search of some specific help to get into doing that inventory in a way that's comfortable. Because if you can get comfortable, the output will be most useful for you. Another tool that you may use, a trick that you can tell yourself if you're doing that inventory, is pretend you're talking about somebody else that you really like, that you really respect, that you would advocate for. That's a great way to do it. Now, hopefully those things are true. It's just yourself that you're talking about, but depersonalizing a little bit sometimes can give you permission to take it on. That's a tip when we talk about networking too. So put that one in the back of your mind for when we get into that again next month. The next theme around the questions that I've gotten is people aware that if their search takes them what they consider a long time or longer than they want to, it might erode their confidence. And that's true. It's something to be aware about and maybe plan for. Similar to what I said about your mindset, if you're clear on that, it could be a touchstone for you. This is very, very related to that. But a couple of facts to keep in mind is a senior level search almost always takes longer than expected. Sometimes we get lucky and things click really quickly, but oftentimes it takes longer than you expected. That is not a verdict on you. That's just math. So hopefully you can remind yourself of that and accept that. Something that can be really helpful in those moments, if your confidence is lagging a little bit, stay connected to people who know your value rather than just hanging out with people that are trying to evaluate you for the next role. So, tapping into those people that really know your value can be very reassuring for you, can make you much more comfortable. If you think about it, if we're only around the people that are evaluating us in connection calls or interviews, we may be evaluating ourselves all the time rather than remembering what we have to offer. Another thing that can be helpful is keep doing the things that remind you of your competence. It might be advising other people. It might be mentoring. It might be writing. There's no reason you can't post an article on your own LinkedIn page, something like that, to put yourself out there and keep you close to the areas where you really add value. In a way that's not just you taking inventory for yourself, but it really is putting something out in the world and connecting. Something that's very important during a search is for you to build structure and boundaries into your time. Now, if you're searching when you're doing another job, sometimes those boundaries are put in place for you because you're really busy. But if you are not working, it's very easy to sit at your desk for 8 hours a day, convincing yourself that you're doing a productive search. And I can guarantee you can do it in less time. So set a specific schedule for yourself in terms of time, in terms of activity. That might be on the plus side, like I want to make this many connections in a week, or it might be more of a limitation. I only want to work at this 3 hours a day or, 4 hours, 3 days a week, and then do some fun things in the rest of the time that you've created space for that you won't get to do when you start working again. And another thing that I would suggest is to really get a thought partner. Could be a trusted peer. It could be a coach. I work with so many clients during these times, and it is really important to have that sounding board and someone with whom you can pressure test those conversations and plan and can hold you accountable. That kind of activity can really help keep you calibrated when the silence gets loud. So those are some thoughts for you that I hope are really helpful. Let me know which of these 4 areas resonated for you. And then I'll know that that's where I can go deeper, or if I can help you one-on-one, reach out. I'd really like to do that. Thanks for joining me today.